little mini episode where we are going to be wrapping up our look at the Police Academy series. It's been a long, strange journey. One of the great things about doing this series is it is like a time capsule. It just kind of traveling through the 80s and even into the 90s with the last one. It's been fascinating, and I look forward to continuing that journey with some of the future episodes we've got planned. This is not going to be a regular occurrence with the films I review for this series. I don't intend to do separate videos to kind of wrap things up. I will, unless people really like it, unless they kind of like that there's one long review for the movie itself and a separate mini episode kind of for the final thoughts. I mean, if you like that, then please let me know. If you like that format, I can certainly do that. It doesn't hurt me. So anyway, but there are some questions that need to be asked about these films that we're going to be looking at in terms of their impact and why they had the impact they did. So for all the movies that I'm going to be reviewing, I tend to ask 3 specific questions that are going to serve as kind of the thesis statement or the outline for the reviews that I'm going to be doing. When I watch these are the big questions that I have in mind. So, because this was a full series, I didn't think it was right to kind of answer those questions definitively until I got to the end. So, with that, with enough qualifying, let's get to the big 3 questions for the Police Academy series.
It's the 80s, do a lot of coke and vote for Ronald Reagan.
Invest in arbitrage and read J. McInerney.
So question number 1, why was this movie popular? Why did it endure is kind of the shorthand. And we've touched upon a lot of these reasons throughout the various reviews, but they bear repeating. So first of all is that I think in terms of structure, the Academy movies, either by chance or design, had a structure that was built for longevity. Their reliance on a company of stock characters made it easy for new viewers to come in at any point in the series. You didn't have to be watching it from the very beginning. They change up the situations enough to keep things interesting. They find ways to play with the characters, and though it took some time in the mixing and matching of personalities and character types, the core group that has been there throughout the series were strong enough and played off each other well enough that it kept things fresh. They could balance it out. Where we had problems in the series is when the cast got too thin or characters weren't balanced. And the humor, despite how, yes, it is very juvenile, it is very, a lot of fart jokes and a lot of, elementary school humor, specifically in part 5. That is true, but that, as we have mentioned multiple times, I think is part of the secret of the series' success. It was made originally to appeal to young adults, college students, and stuff like that, and ended up appealing to children. And I think that is what gave it that longevity. So those are the nuts and bolts, but thematically, and this is something I talked about a lot in part 1, and I do feel like it has bore out and it has been there throughout the entirety of the series. I think on a thematic level, the reason these films hit the way they did and the reasons why they endured is because, yes, people love an underdog. An underdog story is always going to resonate with an audience. But these films took an interesting take on it. And that is that at no time was it ever suggested that any of these ragtag group of lovable misfits ever had to change who they were. There was never an attempt to tone Tackleberry down and teach him humility. You know, Jones was very comfortable in his kind of self-imposed weirdness. House, they never made, I mean, they made visual gags about him being fat, but they never made verbal ones, never called him any names, or made it seem like it was a bad thing that he was that big. The same can be true as you go through the entire list of characters. You know, Zed, Sweetcheck, even Fackler. There was never an attempt made to say, hey, you need to stop being like this. And it was more of, you just need to learn to put it to good use. A better film critic than I am once said that one of the most comforting phrases in the human language is, you are already doing the right thing. And that audiences really enjoy it when a movie tells them you are already good the way you are, and then reinforces that message. And that is what the Police Academy films did with their cast, is saying, you're already good the way you are. Even if you're a little weird, or you look a little different, or your voice is strange, or you're too big, or you're too tall, or you're too short, you know, or you're too, I guess I would use the word masculine when you're talking about like Callahan, or this or that or anything. Be in control of your weirdness, own your weirdness, and make it work for you. And I don't know, I can't honestly believe that that was a mission of these films. I don't believe they had that kind of subtext when they were being written or filmed or performed, but that is what came out of them. That is what is on the screen, is this love, a deep love for the outsider, the weirdos, and saying that those people have value and that they don't have to change. And that's interesting. What's interesting about this is, as I was kind of going back over the list of films that I want to review for this series, I find that that is a common theme in a lot of them. And that's so interesting to me, that the decade that I think when most people think of the 80s, they think of, you know, obviously the big action films and the big muscle men, you know, the Schwarzeneggers and the Stallones, who, you know, very much embodied that Reagan era fantasy of might makes right, and I'm the biggest, I'm the strongest, and therefore, you know, I'm the best, you know, that very America kind of self-image. And yet there was this entire subgenre of films, of popular culture, that were speaking not to those people, but to everyone else that those people might call nerds and dweebs or whatever. You know, there's a whole other series of films, Revenge of the Nerds, built on that very premise, you know? So I believe, whether they meant to or not, and whether people realized it or not, I certainly didn't realize it as a kid, but I do realize it now, that that was something those films gave me, was this message that it's okay to be who you are, as long as you're being a good person and trying to put those skills to good use. You know, you even see it in characters like Proctor, who, yes, gets his, you know, more than his fair share of bullying, but you never get the feeling that he's a bad person, and he never changes. The bullying that he gets from Harris, that he gets from the other recruits and all that, he's still kind of this lovable kid. And there's never a feeling that he needs to change that. So yeah, I think that's one of the most important things these films have, and one of the reasons why they endured.
Oh man, please don't ever stop being the 80s when my life is over.
Question number 2. Do these films hold up? And in the case of the Police Academy movies, I do believe that the answer is bizarrely no, but also yes. Taken individually, there are just too many weaknesses. I think if you sat down, if you were a new viewer, and you sat down and watched one of these movies, then you'd probably be kind of disappointed in it. I just think there are, each film, especially in the earlier entries, I think there were some good concepts, but a lot of weaknesses, a lot of flaws. And that trend kind of continues throughout the entirety of the series. That there's some good stuff, but there's also some or some or some ooh, in there. So I think if you take each one as an individual film, then no, I don't think they hold up individually. However, as is often the case, bizarrely, with these kind of long-running series, taken as a whole, they add up to something quite unique and endearing. I don't think I would enjoy these movies. These are not films that I sit down to and say, I just want to watch Police Academy 5. Just for shits and giggles. I just want to watch that one. Like, I can do that with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I can do that with James Bond. You can sit down and say, I just want to watch this one. I don't think you can do that with Police Academy. I think if you're going to watch these movies, you have to watch them like you would if you were binge watching a TV show, and watch all of them. And if you watch all of them, I think there's enough good in each one to kind of balance out the parts that don't necessarily work, or the parts that haven't aged well. So yeah, I think if you're gonna watch them, you need to commit to watching all of them, except, of course, Mission to Moscow. You can skip that one unless you're a completist nut and have to have that, that full set. But yeah, I think that's a fascinating trend we see with some of these long-running series, that maybe one of them isn't really that great, but all together there's some kind of wonderful going on there.
You and your 80s.
Your precious 80s.
It would have continued to be the 70s if not for you.
And lastly, question number 3, and this is an interesting one, but one that I think you need to consider when you're dealing with films that are now going on 20, 30, 40 plus years old. And that is, should this movie be remade? Should it be remade? Now, if anybody knows me, or you've been paying attention to my reviews for the last several years, you know that as a general rule, I am opposed to remakes. I tend to think that if something's a classic, then it's a classic for a reason, and you should leave it alone. And maybe use it as a jumping off point for a new story. But unless you have something new to add, unless you have a take that has not been thought of on the material or the characters or the premise, then there's really no reason to remake it. However, that being the case, I will say that there are examples of remakes of films that have either surpassed the originals or have brought a modern sensibility to them and made them better, or made them their own unique thing. I can think of 2 that are in my all-time favorite movies. The Mel Brooks movie To Be or Not to Be is a remake, and I actually think it's better than the original. Another one is the Harrison Ford film Sabrina. which is a remake of an Audrey Hepburn, Humphrey Bogart film. And I actually think that it took a cute story and modernized it and fixed a lot of the issues that the original had. So I do think that if there's something to be gained from a remake and you get people who are really dedicated, I think a remake can be interesting. So when I ask, should this movie be remade, what I'm asking is there another story or a new take or something that could be gained from revisiting the premise or the characters? That's what I'm asking. And with Police Academy, it's an interesting dynamic because, as stated, I don't think there is a perfect Police Academy movie. I think they all have their benefits and they all have their drawbacks. So I do think there is an opportunity there for a young filmmaker to kind of say, okay, let's take this idea of a bunch of ragtag misfits and outsiders joining the police and see what we can do with it. I also think that the public attitude towards law enforcement has changed dramatically from 1984, when the first one of these was made, to 2024. You know, the 80s was a time when we believed very strongly in the authority of law. You know, so many of our action heroes were cops. You know, cops that shirked the rules and didn't play by them and did things their way, you know. I mean, that's basically every character Arnold Schwarzenegger or Bruce Willis played. And that was okay. That was the way it was in the 80s. But clearly, we live in a very different time, and we are constantly questioning law enforcement and questioning authority and looking at systemic racism and profiling and things like that go on. And we've had just so many horrible incidences over the past several years that just make us question how the police are being trained and who's getting in and how much power they have. So it would be interesting to see a comedy, because comedy does hold up a mirror to society. Comedy does serve a purpose in a society. What we tolerate, what we don't tolerate, So the idea of looking at the Police Academy through that lens, that could be a very fascinating take on it. And before anybody kind of comes at me like, don't make things political, don't make the Police Academy political. The original Police Academy was political. Like, the whole purpose of it was the idea that a female governor that they all kind of talked down about made this decision to open up police recruiting to everybody, and the powers that be were not happy about it, but then the people that it brought in turned out to be great. So that's very political. So I'm not making the Police Academy movies political. I'm saying that when they started, there were political statements being made. So I'm not making things political. They already were. So from that aspect, from that viewpoint, I think there's a story to be told and something interesting that you could do with it. That being said, I think a direct remake of this would be a huge mistake. Simply because, as we have already discussed, some of these characters have become so beloved, and some of these actors have become so synonymous with their characters that it kind of defines their entire career. And I don't say that as a bad thing. I mean, Michael Winslow kind of owes the Police Academy movies movies for his entire career. And the idea of having someone else coming in and playing Jones or Tackleberry or Hightower, it just reads icky. It reads the same amount of icky to me when they did that Three Stooges movies a few years back, and someone else was playing Mo Howard. You can't do that because Mo Howard was Mo Howard. You know, that's his character, and someone else playing it just felt wrong. You know? And I think that would be true of this. I think you could maybe do a Legacy sequel, which are very popular now. I bet you could get back. I mean, if Leslie Easterbrook and Michael Winslow came back for Mission to Moscow, I think you could probably get them back for a reboot of the Police Academy series. You know, where maybe you get that all the remaining Legacy characters, Jones, Callahan, Sweet Check, Zed. I bet you could even get Mahoney back. I don't think Steve Guttenberg's dance card is particularly full at the moment. And have them now running the Academy. I think the fans would accept that. I will say that it would be very hard because there are so many wonderful members of that Police Academy family who are missing now. You know, there will be no Hightower, no Tackleberry, no Commandant Lassard, no Hooks, and that would be a gaping wound in it. But maybe done as a loving tribute to those who were in these movies, I think maybe there's something there. So, could it be done? Yes. Should it be done? Questionable. But I do think there is something interesting there, and maybe with the right directorial hand, it could be done. And that is it. Those are my final thoughts on the Police Academy series. So, with that wrapped up, we are going to be moving on to our next couple films, which I've already selected. I know which ones we're going to be looking at. However, once again, I will say that I am always looking for input. So there is a Drive Home Reviews Facebook group. So you can go join that and feel free to leave comments. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you can put your thoughts in the comment section. You can comment in the various places where you get your podcasts. But in the group, in the Facebook group, I do have a link to a survey that I am asking, what movies do you think I should tackle next? Which ones are you kind of interested to hear my take on? So if I know kind of which ones people are interested in hearing me talk about, that might make me go, okay, let's move on and do that one next or whatever. So I would like to hear from you. So please leave your comments, leave your thoughts. And yeah, so thank you very much. Thank you for coming along on this inaugural series for Drive Home Totally Awesome, Bodacious, Radical, Gnarly 80s Reviews. And we look forward to seeing you with our next one next week. So thanks a lot. And as always, drive safe. And I will see you at the movies.